Hi.
Hello again. Back to William Vine, Expository Dictionary of Old and New Testament Words on Gehenna. Under the heading Hell in Vine's book, Gehenna represents the Hebrew Gehinnom, the Valley of Tophet, and a corresponding Aramaic word. It is found 12 times in the New Testament, 11 of which are in the Synoptists, that is the first 3 Gospels. In every instance is uttered by the Lord himself. He who says to his brother, "Thou fool," see under fool, will be in danger of hellfire. That's Matthew 5:22. It is better to pluck out a metaphorical description of irrevocable law, better to pluck out an eye that causes its possessor to stumble, than that his whole body be cast into hell. That's Matthew 5:29. Similarly with the hand, verse 30. In Matthew 18:8 and 9, the admonitions are repeated with an additional mention of the foot. Here too, the warning concerns the person himself, for which obviously the body stands in chapter 5. In verse 8, the eternal fire is mentioned as the doom, the character of the region standing for the region itself, the two being combined in the phrase, the hell of fire. That is verse 9. To the passage in Matthew 18, that in Mark 9:43-47 is parallel. Here to the word hell are applied the extended descriptions, the unquenchable fire, and where their worm dieth not, and the fire is not quenched. Now, we should, before we leave this part, just make the point that when you're in the witnesses, you think you know a lot of this. Mm-hmm. You know, if you've done your research, that the Valley of Hinnom was a garbage dump.
Yeah.
Outside Jerusalem. This is where garbage and even the bodies of criminals were thrown.
Right.
But you think that that defines it. That is, it's symbolic, because it's not really that place, Gehenna, but that symbolizes it. And what was that? Well, to you, as a witness, it's non-existence. But to a Jew, is that what it meant?
It's supposed to symbolize something else. Right?
Yeah. What would the thing symbolize to a Jew who lived in those times? Did they believe that even criminals were non-existent after they died? So Vine goes on to talk about statements in the New Testament that shed light on that.
Okay. That God, after he killeth, hath power to cast into hell, is assigned as a reason why he should be feared with the fear that keeps from evil doing. That's Luke 12:5. The parallel passage to this is in Matthew 10:28, and declares, not the casting in, but the doom which follows, namely the destruction, not the loss of being, but of well-being, of both soul and body. In Matthew 23, the Lord denounces the scribes and Pharisees, who in proselytizing a person make him twofold more a son of hell than themselves. That's Matthew 23, verse 15. The phrase here being expressive of moral characteristics and declares the impossibility of their escaping the judgment of hell. Verse 33. In James 3:6, hell is described as the source of evil done by misuse of the tongue. Here the word stands for the powers of darkness, whose characteristics and destiny are those of hell.
Maybe we should read that decisive passage for Vine from the New World Translation, which is Matthew 10, verse 28.
Okay. And do not become fearful of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. And they have a footnote that says life instead of soul. But rather be in fear of him that can destroy both soul and body in Gehenna.
Well, you think the footnote does it justice, but if you're a witness, you have to think it's talking about life, because that's the only definition you have for soul. You go back to Genesis chapter 2, and that man became a living soul, a totality. That is a man with a body, but so not some other part of him that was somehow him, but not attached to his body. That's gone.
Yeah.
But in the days of Jesus, that's what the word soul had come to mean, because every word, as Vine points out over and over in this book, Every word has shades of meaning over time. So what did soul mean? Well, it meant more what the church has always thought of as the spirit. To be more accurate, you would say it's that other component of man which is disembodied. But they did believe in it, and therefore they didn't believe Gehenna was non-existence. Because he says, what does God have the power to do? I mean, men can kill your body,
Yeah.
but after that they have nothing they can do.
Yeah. So if your body is dead, doesn't that mean your soul or your life is also
Your
dead?
life is dead.
So it
Gone.
doesn't really, it's kind of redundant here to say both if they mean the same thing.
And God is throwing your spirit, casting your spirit, your soul, into this other place that is called here Gehenna. So what did they think Gehenna was? They thought it was the eternal judgment of God on people who were unrepentant. So yes, they make a fine point, and we can agree with the Watchtower here. As Vine says himself in the first paragraph of this analysis, he says it only occurs 12 times. 11 times Gehenna is in the mouth of Jesus, and it's used to threaten even the religious with something beyond death. Not non-existence, because
But a doom.
a doom.
Yeah.
And James, interestingly, the half-brother of Jesus, is the only other person who uses it. Now, it is true that Christians, by the way, differ on this. John Stott, for instance, does not agree with the idea of an eternal hell. Neither does F.W. Farrer, the great Anglican theologian of 120 years ago. There's lots of them who disagree with the caricature the Watchtower uses of hellfire. You're allowed to do that within Christianity. But what you can do with freedom in Christendom, you can't do in the Watchtower. You have to adopt this position, or you'd be their position on Hades, their position on hell, or else you are cast out as worthy of eternal destruction, interestingly enough. I think we need to state very clearly then that if you are a Christian and are attending church, you don't have to believe in hell. By the way, you don't have to believe in the Trinity either. Nobody's going around with a scorecard or a whip.
You know, people reason on the scriptures and they come to certain conclusions and they'll present them. So if yours differs than another person's, it's because it's not clear. You know, that there is the ability to see it both ways. So then you kind of have to wait and see.
But I believe, though, that we have to say, if we're going to trust anybody about what the scriptures actually say, I'm going to vote with the scholars. I'm not going to assume the Watchtower knows better than all the world scholars. So in future videos, we want to go beyond Vine, because I'm not trusting in Vine, just like I don't trust in the Watchtower. But he happens to be an authentic scholar that even the Watchtower acknowledges as being important and credible.
So does the Watchtower trust Vine? Yes, they cite him selectively, but does he selectively cite the Watchtower to confirm himself? No.
Never yet have I bumped into a Greek or a Hebrew scholar who cites the Watchtower as authoritative, but the Watchtower tends to cite them and builds, that is, develops their credibility into their own credibility.
Often by misusing what they say.
Right, and I have heard of Greek scholars like Metzger.
Yeah.
Metzger, for instance, the great Greek text scholar, Bruce Metzger, and several others have taken, Julius Manti was another, have taken the Watchtower to task for misquoting them.
Right.
Because
representing them, yeah.
I've never seen them one of those scholars quote the Watchtower approvingly, though. So in future segments, we'll talk more about what scholars have to say about these, very basic Bible words. And if you misunderstand these words, you can get a very wrong idea about an awful lot of important things, not just life after death.